Welcome back to another Sprinter episode, everyone. So this is a Sunday morning in the booth, getting the demasked, getting that sheet off the driver's side. Gonna start getting that block down, DA'd up, get it ready for the Rapid Surface Octoral primer. So yeah, that's gonna be the black primer. Gonna do that in the black Rapid Surfacer. Reason it's called Rapid Surfacer is it goes off rapid. It is really quick drying time and that stuff. So yeah, you can get that stuff cooked off pretty quickly and start rubbing it, and you can get your next job painted when you're using that stuff. It's really fast curing time. It is amazing stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna use on the full shell, even all the doors, all the panels. There's a lot of build to it. It flattens nice. It rubs easy, and yeah, it's just overall a really nice product. So yeah, that's why I'm gonna use it. So yeah, getting it all blocked down, and then I run over it with the DA, just using 320 on a block, getting all the swage lines, everything nice and sharp, all the lines nice and crisp, get them all clean looking, get them as sharp as we can and as nice as we can. Because again, the body lines are everything. If they don't all look nice and sharp, then that's gonna look pretty horrendous. But again, there's not much filler in any of my body lines, so there's nothing really to worry about. But you still want to block everything because it just makes a van and any paint job look better. It just makes it look a lot flatter. So yeah, that's the advantages of blocking all your panels. It takes a lot longer, don't get me wrong, but it's worth it in the long run. Because once I get the shell primed black, I end up blocking it again anyway. So I blocked it twice really. So yeah, we should be good. We should be looking pretty straight down the side of these panels when it's painted anyway. We shouldn't be looking too bad. Again, it's quite time consuming blocking big panels, especially even though this isn't a massive van, but it's still very time consuming. Getting them all blocked down, guide coating it up, and then run over with your DA. Then get it sanded up with your orbital sander. Again, them orbital sanding marks are a lot finer than your blocking sanding marks. They're quite coarse, even though they're the same grit. It's the way you're rubbing it. You're going back and forward. Is where an orbital sander, it's much finer prep. So yeah, that's why you want to always finish with your orbital sander. You always want fine prep work, especially when you come to your prime and painting stage. You don't want dead rough prep work because it'll all show through. So yeah, it's getting everything blocked down nice. I did find a little low spot down in the sill. I did know about it. I just was lying to myself saying I was going to be lazy and not repair it because it didn't look that bad. Even after I'd skimmed it, it was still low, and I was like, you know what, I just can't be bothered putting another skim in that. It was down low, it was in the sill. I just really wasn't. I just wasn't in the mood for it, to be brutally honest. I know it sounds really bad, but hey, it's my van. It's not a customer's. If it's a customer's, I'd have to do it, but it was my van. This was a long Sunday, so again, it wasn't an awfully bad dent. It was just quite a low spot in the sill, so it just didn't look great. But I did skim it. I could just tell it was low afterwards when I was rubbing it and feeling it. I'm like, yeah, that's still low, but I'm getting this thing primed. I'm not too bothered. If it was high up and it was eye height, everyone's gonna see it, I'd do it. But it was down low. I wasn't really stressed about it. I just wanted to get this thing primed, and which meant that I could push on. Then this gave me good chance to get the shell painted the following weekend. So yeah, this is a make or break. This is what I was saying about how much I get done in a weekend depends on how far it pushes on. So yeah, no, it was good to get this roof and this side all prime this weekend on this Sunday, and then I get the other side done and the other bits of the shell done one night in the week. So yeah, we'll get to that a bit later on. Yeah, just getting the whole side of it blocked up because yeah, it just makes all your panels look mint, nice and flat. Don't want any ripples or anything going on down the side of your panels. So yeah, blocking just helps eliminate all that. It's not fun on your shoulders, but you definitely don't need to be messing around with no gym when you're doing that all day. Your shoulders know about that. That is some serious work. Blocking vans on the daily. So yeah, get it all blocked, and then you're gonna DA it. Then you got to do all your edges by hand, all your hand rubbing where your machine can't get. You know, you've got to do all that. So yeah, your hands and your shoulders do feel it. You know, they do take an absolute hammering, but it definitely keeps you in shape anyway. Definitely, because you can't work slow when you're doing this sort of stuff. You gotta work quick, and once you get in, it's easier to rub a repair fast than it is slow. If that makes sense, like if you have more momentum when you're blocking a repair, it's just easier. You don't want to be putting loads of pressure into it because you start pushing the panel in and stuff, and you don't want to be putting loads of aggression into it. You just want to let the sandpaper do the work, but it's just easier the quicker you move. If you're moving dead slowly, then it's not going to be very easy, but the quicker you move, it's just, yeah, it's a lot easier. So yeah, I could get away with not blocking up there, but I did have a repair where I'm at there somewhere, so I knew I had to block up there on that panel. But above here now, there was no filler up there. I just chose to block it because I wanted to. Again, just gives me the best chance of it all being nice and flat. Definitely the best way. Again, takes more time, but if you want a good job, then it's worth doing. I could have happily just DA'd it, but it wouldn't look the end result wouldn't have looked as good or won't look as good when it comes to it. So by me choosing to block it, it does definitely help with your end result. And so yeah, no, it does. It might not seem it now. Yeah, I got some hellish flickering going on there, which isn't great. Don't know why that's come back to us. I thought we'd sorted all that, but yeah, it just seems to be when I'm at a certain angle and the lighting's at a certain angle, it just doesn't like what it's seeing. So yeah, I am sorry about that. It's something I've been trying to get rid of so badly, but yeah, it just doesn't seem to do one at the minute, which is really frustrating. Yeah, getting it all blown off now, get it all clean, get it all ready for masking up. Again, there's not much. Well, actually, no, I'm not getting it clean. I'm getting it to start DAing the roof now. I thought I'd already done all that, but obviously not. So yeah, I got a lot of prep to do here in this roof. Good thing about this epoxy is because it's so hard, you don't burn through on all your edges or anything when you with your DA. You can take your DA and hit all your edges, and it doesn't burn through instantly. Like some primers and some epoxies are quite soft, and they're not what they should be. But this stuff is really, yeah. There's a lot of build to it, and I was happy with that. It meant I got three good coats on there, and there's plenty of product up there for me to be rubbing at without breaking through. Because if you're breaking through to your bare metal after you've epoxied it, then all your time epoxying it is wasted. Because the epoxy's there for your anti-corrosion resistance and all that carry on. So if you've gone back to your bare metal and you don't plan on putting more epoxy on, then that's a waste of time, really. Because you're then gonna have to put etch primer down, and that's not going to have the same corrosion property as an epoxy is. So, you've effectively wasted your time if you burn through everywhere and you've got loads of bare metal. Like, I did have the odd little edge here and there, which I wasn't too stressed about, but it's still not the point. You still don't want to do it. You really want to avoid breaking through what you can, because again, it's just a waste of time and it's a waste of product as well. You've done all that work and spent all that time, and you've not really benefited from it by because you've burnt through everywhere. So yeah, it's just if you can avoid it, definitely avoid it. But yeah, I'm DAing everything with 320 because I'm gonna prime it the whole van again anyway. So yeah, prime it in Octoral, and then that'll be the last thing we do then before it's the painting stage. Yeah, just using Merca 320 foam, hand pads, Gold Flex. If anyone's wondering what they are, they come in a box, square box on a roll. They're just pre-cut little hand pads. Again, you can just tear them off and just key up all your stuff where you can't get with a machine where you've got to rub in by hand. They're great for stuff like that, all your edges and stuff like door shuts and backs of panels and stuff. Bumpers, they're just brilliant. They've got a foam backing to them, so they're soft. You can push them into curvatures and things like that. So yeah, they're brilliant. Them, I really rate them. You can get different brands and stuff. We've just used the Merca ones. I really like the Indasa ones. They're really good, but again, they're more expensive. But I really rate the Indasa ones. That's just my opinion, though. I think they're fantastic. The Merca ones are really good too. Don't get me wrong, the Mercas are fantastic, but yeah, I really like the Endasa ones. Like the squares are bigger, like the pre-cut squares are bigger and stuff, and they just the general coarseness of the sandpaper, I would say, is better. But that again, that's all my opinion. It's not fact. That's just my opinion. I think the Endasa ones last longer. But yeah, the Mercas are very good. Yeah, getting all the ribs and stuff done by hand where I can't get the DA there. You're just on them soft curves. Again, you don't want to be rubbing your DA into the edges of all them and burning through all your bare metal because again, that's all wasted time. So yeah, that epoxy is very hard wearing. I was shocked at how hard wearing it was. Some epoxies I've used have been really soft and not as durable and not as I don't know, just they just burn through if your sandpapers too easily for what it should be. So it doesn't really give off a good feel for how durable it's gonna be. Certain brands anyway. But yeah, no, I was quite happy with that one. Because yeah, this is a full day workup getting this all sorted and basically ready for the next stage of primer. So I got in work for about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was done for about half seven, 8 o'clock at night. So that puts it into context of how much of a shift I've put in to get this to where I wanted it for primer and stuff. Again, it's not a quick process to do it. It takes time and it takes time to do it right and do it well. You can rush it if you want, but you're not gonna have the quality there. So what's the point? What's the point in rushing something and the quality is just mediocre and okay when you could take a bit more time and do something really nice. That's the way I try to sort of treat things. Just makes everything worth doing. Then when you look back at it, you think, well, I've done a good job of that. That's clean. That looks decent. I'd be happy with that, and I am happy with that. For jobs I'm talking about that I have done. Taking a bit more time here and there and making sure that it's how you would want it if that was your motor or your vehicle or whatever. Making sure that you treat it like your own, but some people treat their own stuff terribly, so I don't like to use that saying. People say, "Oh, treat it like it's your own," but the way some people treat stuff when it's their own, if you've paid for it, you've got every right to treat it like crap. But you don't want to see people treat stuff like that. So yeah, just treat it like it's worth a lot of money. That's what I just treat it well. Yeah, you don't want to be ragging stuff and ratcheting at stuff, and definitely not the best way to be treating primer anyway. Going in all aggressive and just you let the sandpaper do the work. Again, it's just let that do the work. If it's not cutting anymore, then get a new disc or a new hand pad. Once the sandpaper starts cutting and your primer doesn't flatten anymore, then that's when you've gone through you've burnt through your abrasive pretty much. Again, I've got repairs up there, so I'm gonna block them, which I said I would. So yeah, get using the block, get them blocked down, flattened up nice, and then I'll run over them with the DA. Yeah, and they weren't too bad repairs. I was quite happy with how they turned out for what they needed to be anyway. Up there on the roof, no one's gonna look up there, but still not the it's not the way you definitely not the attitude to have just because no one's looking up there. Your repairs still got to be right. But yeah, if because it's on a roof, there's certain things you can get away with a bit more than if it was down the side. Repairs down the side have always got to be mint, got to be bang on because everyone's looking at them, so you got to make sure you take your time with them and get them right. Spend the time, always spend the time, make sure you repair. Sometimes you don't get the luxury to spend the time. Certain jobs you're not getting paid to spend the time to make it right. You're just getting paid to make it not smashed up. And that's sometimes the way it goes. It's like sometimes you're getting paid to just flick colour over something that's full of stone chips. It's like sales cars that they don't want to pay to have stone chips done, and you're having to flick clear coat over stone chips, and it's like, well, you're not paying us to flick colour there. It's as rough as it sounds. It's the truth. It's just that's the way that goes. Yeah, none of that sales stuff going on here. No stone chips in this van at the minute. Anyway, she's not driving anywhere. Yeah, getting them ribs all rubbed up nice and keyed up, all that sealer all around that plastic. Don't even know what it is. Just like a plastic grommet, just watertight grommet. In that new panel again, I cut that out the old panel because again, I think they were quite expensive to get a hold of, if I remember rightly. So yeah, took that out the old panel and bonded it back into the new one. Again, halfway point now on this roof, which I'm pretty happy about. It's taken a long time to get this done. A lot of the Sunday to get this smashed out. Again, the roof's always the most, say hard, but it's just the most unpleasant part of the van to hit. Then again, them roof gutters. It's just because you're swinging off ladders and things. Them roof gutters are hard. You're trying to get in there by hand. It just batters your fingers. It's nice to jump between the DA and doing a bit of hand rubbing because yeah, your fingers do take a bit of a battering. Doing all that, and your shoulders and stuff too. Just nice to get a bit of a break. Like this is just easy doing that there. Doesn't take a lot of movement. It looks like it, but it doesn't. Again, there's no weight because the DA's sat on the roof. It's on its own weight. I'm not having to hold it like it's on the side of a van or anything. Holding it upright vertical. Again, it's sat flat on the roof there, so I'm just pushing it around. It's not too hard, nothing too strenuous or anything. It's so nice to see this roof and a lot of the van now not rusty and not horrible looking. It's really coming to now, which is nice. It's been a long time getting it to this stage. It's not been easy by any means, but it's not been hard. But it's not been easy in the fact that I've been doing it all after 5 o'clock and on weekends, and when your motivation's not exactly at an all-time high, it's quite hard to push through and just come in and do this. But especially when you've done your 5 days a week as it is, and you're not feeling too energetic, and then you got to start doing your own one, and you're not getting paid for it. It's hard to get the love to do it, but once you get into the rhythm of it, it's all right. It's when you get out of the rhythm of it for a bit. But I've not really taken much of a break from doing this. I've probably had a couple of weekends off since we started the project in August to now when I'm filming this, and this is in November, so yeah, there's I can probably count on one hand the amount of weekends I've had off. I try not to take any breaks from it because I need this vehicle back on the road. Need my van back on the road. I want to get it done. And yeah, it's winter. It's winter now. I do not want to be spending any more time in the workshop than I need to be after 5 o'clock. It's cold. It's not nice. It's obviously not cold in the spray booth, but you're not always in there after 5. So yeah, it's just not pleasant. You want to be getting out the door at 5, handy, getting home, chilling out when you've done your 5 days a week. You don't want to be going back in and doing all this on a Saturday or a Sunday, and of an evening or after work and at the night time. It's not. I wouldn't say it's not pleasant. It is pleasant because I do enjoy it, but yeah, it's hard work when you're so tired and so drained, and you've got to get the motivation to just start grafting and pushing on fast because the quicker you work, the quicker it gets done. So there's it's like people ask me, oh, when will it be finished? When will it be painted? And it's like, well, how fast do you want me to work, or how fast do I need to work? That's the question. I there's that's it's literally down to that. But speed, working fast is great, but as long as your quality's still there, you can't be compromising your quality because of your speed. You've got to have there's got to be a nice mix of both. You got to work fast, but you've got to be doing it to a good standard. So yeah, there's always that. But yeah, this sort of stuff here is not really. I can only the DA is at its fastest setting there. I can only make it move so fast, and you want to keep it moving at an even, move it at an even sort of crisscross pattern. So your sandpaper's cutting all your primer down evenly and consistently. You don't want to be burning through in one spot, and then you're going to get a big low area. So yeah, it's always about keeping it moving consistently in crisscross patterns and stuff. Again, it just evens any of your strokes out then as well. If you go over crisscross pattern, if you're just going side to side, you're just gonna get like a side to side. Like you're not gonna get any damage from it if you're using a soft pad on the back of your sander. But I just prefer to crisscross. It makes a lot more sense. Go one way then go the other way. As you can see there, I'm going back and forward, then I'm going left and right with it. Crisscross, and that's what I call it. Crisscross with your DA, evens it all out. Definitely the best way to do it. I think so anyway. People might disagree, but that's just how I've always done it, and that's how I will continue to do it. So yeah, I've nearly cracked the worst of this reef out now, which I'm pretty happy with because that's taken a lot of time to get that rubbed. That's not been easy. But yeah, the only reason I say it's not been easy just because how hard that. Say it's hard. It rubs really nice and it rubs really powdery, that primer, but it's hard to flatten and to, if that makes sense to people, when you've people that know what I'm on about. When you cut and primer, you want to flatten it. You can just sand the top layer off and the primer will still be ripply, if that makes sense, but you want to cut it, you want to cut the layers off, make it flat. And the only way you do that is by rubbing at it hard. Well, not hard, but you rubbing at it for quite a while before you flatten that first like ripply layer off. So yeah, for people that don't know what I'm talking about there, that's what I mean by that. So yeah, I want the flatter I can get that primer down, sanded, the better my next coats of primer will lie, if that makes sense, or lay down on the panel. Again, it's all about having everything nice and flat and getting stuff to lay down nice, like primers and paints and stuff and clear coats. So yeah, that's that powdered guide coat I'm rubbing on there because I've blocked all that by hand. And I need to go over it with a DA, orbital DA, finish it up with that, get it nice and smooth. Again, your orbital scratches are a lot finer than your blocking scratches, so that's why we're doing that. Don't want any sinkers or shrinkages showing through 6 months down the line. If I was to just finish that in a block with 320, yes, I can finish in 320 for my primer, but if I finish in a block, you're gonna or people will see in 6 months' time to a year, you're gonna see big blocking marks of like forwards and backwards sort of motions that have gone up the side of the van. It's gonna look like I've rubbed it with a brick, because everything will sink and shrink. So, you want to finish in 320, but you want to finish in 320 on your orbital sander. Not on a block with your abrasives, with your filler block effectively, with your strips that go on there. You don't want to see big train tracks going up the side of your van where you've been rubbing at it to block a repair in or something. So yeah, always finish on your DA. Moral of the story. So yeah, getting all that epoxy nice and flattened. Again, not breaking through anywhere, avoiding to break through as much as I can. Again, I didn't really have many breakthroughs. I had the odd one here and there. It is expected, but you just really want to avoid it. I'm trying to keep the DA nice and flat on any of them swage lines, keeping them body lines nice and sharp. Again, on these sprinters, them body lines are everything. I don't know any van, but because of how sharp the lines are on them vans, you want to keep them looking sharp. You don't want to be digging in anywhere and disforming any of them lines and making them look uneven or look like they've had a hard life. So yeah, keeping everything nice, keep it all moving. Yeah, and I'm using them Indasa Rhino grip P320 discs there. Again, I just love Indasa discs. Really rate them. Really, really rate Indasa sanding discs. So yeah, if anyone wants to know what I'm using there, that is them. They do last for a long time as well. That's one thing I will say. You do get a long lifespan out of them discs. That I've massive fan of them. Same with the Mercur Iridium strips. Um, we had some of them sent down recently, and it's not very often you get to use them. They are very expensive, but I'm pretty sure I blocked the side of that van with one strip. And usually some brands you could use two or three or four strips by the time you've done a side of a van. So yeah, them Merca Iridiums, they are something else to be fair. But if you've seen the price of them, you'd expect them to be what I've just said. The price of them reflects what they are, though. They're that price for a reason because they last and they're really good. If they were that price and they weren't doing the job, then I'd be moaning and be saying to the supplier, take them back. They're rubbish. They're not worth the money you've charged us for them. But yeah, you if you're buying expensive sandpapers and they're not doing the job, then you want to be you're not moaning, but you want to be saying something to the supplier or the reps or whoever. But yeah, a lot of the stuff we use, we've used it for a long time, like the Merca, the Bax brands, in Dasa and stuff. Um, I've used a lot of 3M discs. I haven't used them for a while, but I used to use them a lot. The 3M Hookit ones. Again, I don't have any issues using them, but yeah, it's not often you see 3M really anymore. It's more so in Dasa and Merca. Again, a lot of Bax discs too. We get a lot of them in. They're really good. So yeah, it seems like this is going on forever, just rubbing this van over and over and over again. Pretty sure by the end of it, I'll have sanded this van about 3 times, but it'll all be worth it when the colour's down. It'll all be worth it. Again, making sure that them seams is nice and keyed up. We don't want any flaky paint coming out of them. Definitely not hitting that up with a pressure washer in the winter and stuff, getting all the crap off it and paint flaking off out of there wouldn't be nice. So yeah, just making sure that's all keyed up. Again, I'm going to use a lot of the masking I've got on the van for primer, but when it comes to paint, obviously the thing will be immaculate. Yeah, we'll be doing some real big cleanup for paint. We'll spend a bit of time cleaning the booth and stuff beforehand. Blowing all the walls, blowing all the floor, giving all the lights a blow off, just getting it really well cleaned in there. I'll probably take the van outside and blow the van outside on the day I paint it and stuff. Um, I'll probably spend a good, probably half an hour or more blowing the van off and wiping it down before I even take it in the booth. The cleaner you take that in the spray booth, the less contamination and the less dust and the less dirt you're taking in. So that's the way to look at it. I know it sounds really OCD, but you've got to be that. It's that way for a reason. You don't want to be spending time polishing loads of crap out your job because you were too lazy to clean it, or you could just couldn't be bothered. Same thing. But so yeah, I've just jumped ahead of it now. I had to let the DJI charge for a bit, so as that was charging, I started masking up, went and checked it, and the battery was good again. So just threw it back on as I started masking this door shut up. Again, just using pretty sure 36-inch brown paper and Dasa 2-inch. Again, that's in Dasa's new range of 2-inch tape. Again, I really like that compared to the old stuff. The glue's really sticky on it, which isn't a bad thing, but sometimes it can be too sticky. But hey, some people are never happy, including me. But yeah, no, it is good. I really do rate it, but sometimes the glue can be too sticky, but it's not a bad thing at all. And the only reason I say it can be too sticky is sometimes the tape will stick to itself and it won't pull apart again. But that's just me being special and not pulling tape out properly. Yeah, I'm gonna run a fold back across that top A pillar there, all the way down to the back end of the van. Nice fold back, which means I'll get a nice soft edge where I blow my primer into. Again, don't want any hard edges. So yeah, fold back's nice and loose. Don't leave them too tight on your panel. Want them to be nice and loose. Yeah, you can tell it's late in the day now because it's dark out in the workshop. It's pitch black. This was pushing on this. This must have been gone 6 o'clock. But yeah, I've done the worst part. That's all the sanding. All this stuff now, I'm asking it up. This is just switch off now. In my head, I'm just in autopilot now. I'm just switching off, just chilling out. Because again, this is nothing to. I don't really have to think about what I'm doing. Just get on with it and go. So here in the office now, this is what I call my office in the mixing room. On the scheme, so a kit of Octoral primer, PF345B, B for black. That's what I'm using there. Rapid surfacer. So this primer, most traditional primers, you put your hardener in before you put your thinner in, but this Octoral stuff, you actually put your thinner in before your hardener. So that was a bit of a head melter when the reps first brought that round, and they're like showing us this new primer and how great it was and how good it is, and they're like, oh, by the way, when you're mixing it, you have to put your thinner in first, so don't ever forget that. But when you're doing it on the scheme tells you anyway. You wouldn't let you put the hardener in first, but it's still something that just it goes against the grain of everything you've ever known as a mixing primer. You know, it's always been primer, hardener, then thinner. Like that's always the way it's been. You know, so for that to be that way, that was yeah, it was a bit backwards to be honest. It was hard to remember because it's easy to forget stuff like that. So yeah, first coat now. I did actually want to shoot this in real time, but I just forgot to switch the DJI over, so I just did it in time warp by accident. I'd love to have put this first coat on in real time because it's first coat of black going down, it would have looked real nice. But again, this primer is great because it dries with a gloss to it with a real good shine. Which means if you've got any repairs or anything, you know, if that's nice and black and shiny, it's going to show any edges or any repairs or anything that's not quite right. So it does give you that second chance to rectify any issues or anything you're not happy with, and any of your panels or any repairs or anything like that. Or even if you haven't rubbed it properly, you know, if it dries shiny rather than most primers dry like a satin or a matte finish to them, you know, if it dries shiny and you start sanding it, you can clearly see where you've been sanding and where you haven't been sanding because it's gone really matte and really dull. And obviously it's dried all shiny gloss everywhere else. So yeah, there's massive advantages to this primer. You know, you can catch people out as well, people that say they've sanded their jobs, and you know, you go and check it, and if it's still shiny, well, no, they've not sanded the job because the primer's still shiny. So yeah, I do think Octoral have been really smart about how they've done that because you know you can see if you've sanded something or not clear as day. You know, so yeah, no, I'm a big fan of their rapid surface primer, the white, the black. I've not seen the grey yet, but I've heard it's been launched, so we'll see if we get it. So yeah, I think pretty sure I switched this over to real time now. Yeah, I did. I took the camera off to see what was going on. So this was 3 coats, but I skipped the second coat out just to keep the video as short as I could. You know, everyone's seen the first coat, so this is skipped to the third coat, and I did the third coat in real time just for people to see. Again, a bit nicer for people to see stuff in real time. Again, it's only me putting primer on. Putting primer on, I don't take it too seriously, unless it's a wet on wet. If it's wet on wet, then you take it more serious. But because I'm going to end up sanding this again, I've just gone in on an autopilot and just basically lashed it on and got in and got out because it was Sunday, it was getting late, and I was really tired at this point, so I'm just trying to push through. So yeah, some people might be wondering, some of my overlaps and stuff, people will be looking at thinking that's not great, but when you're that tired and you're drained, you're just not really that bothered. But there's plenty of coverage. It's not like the overlaps were horrendous. I was just a bit inconsistent with it. But again, it's not a metallic colour, so there's nothing to worry about there. What is surprising is how far that stuff goes. A little bit goes a really long way. Like some primers I've used before on a roof this big, you could use up to, you know, you could use, I don't know, say probably, so the cup on the spray gun there, you could use a cup on a side. You know, I've done this roof in a full cup and a little bit more. You know, I will. What I'm trying to say is the Octoral, it goes a longer way in the fact of a full cup full of it. I got the roof primed and a bit more of the shell, if that makes sense. I'm not too handy at explaining that. But yeah, that's what I'm trying to get through. A little bit goes a long way, so it's really, really cost effective. Again, which I like, even though, well, I mean, I've paid for this kit of primer because it's my van, but even going forward, you know, for company jobs, it's just great because, you know, you're not using massive amounts of it. So yeah, you can see what I'm on about my overlaps there. See how I've gone a bit further than the first overlap I did in the centre. Again, that's what I'm talking about. Again, they should all be consistent, but I was just so tired and my arms are hanging off me at this point. So yeah, I'm just finished for the day. I'm ready to retire. But yeah, we can't retire yet. Get this last coat on, clean the gun, put this on bake for a bit, and then yeah, go home. Ready to start the day again for tomorrow, Monday. Back at it. Back at it Monday night. Start getting the other side prepped up for Octoral then, and yeah, and then we can get the whole thing rubbed. Once the whole shell's in black Octoral primer, we can get the whole thing flattened down then, and that'll be really exciting then. Then there'll be some serious progress to be made on painting it. You know, that's gonna be the best thing for everyone to see that, because that's just what everyone's hanging around for. People that are even still watching and having a ski at what's going on in the build. Everyone will be thinking, when's he gonna get that shell painted? Wanted to say it but I couldn't. My favourite word that begins with F. When's he gonna get that shell painted? Yeah, when am I gonna get that shell painted? Soon. It's coming. We're getting to it. Don't worry. I'm as giddy as everyone else. If anyone else is giddy, probably just me because it's my van. But yeah, I am one giddy man right now to get this thing in paint, in colour, see it for what it's gonna be. You know, I've done the spray out card. I've seen what the colour is. I've done my seat bases. So yeah, I know how sick it's gonna look when I get to it. So yeah, get the other side done now. I probably look like I'm being a rough man there, but I can't hang around with this primer. I need to get moving again. Get them ladders round to the other side. Need to get up on the roof and start getting that coat on the other side of the roof, because that primer will be drying so fast. So you don't want that all drying already and then trying to keep it. You know, you're trying to keep it wet. You're trying to keep a wet edge. That's the key with keeping a nice paint job. You always want a wet edge. So yeah, the fact that I'm having to take it, you know, ideally you'd have a set of ladders either side of the van, but I only like painting off them blue ladders because you can fully lean over the handrail. You know, you're really stable. You can get a good feel for trying to get a coat on a roof because you've got something to hang on to. You know, your airline isn't sticking down the side of the van. You know, you got to watch all that. You got to watch your airlines and stuff that they're not sticking in, or your boots, you know, or your paint suit's not near it and printing it, because I've done that before. We've all done it. If people have ever leant over the side of something to reach into a roof, and you know the arm of your paint suit is stuck in, and you just, oh, there's nothing worse. Honestly, there's nothing worse. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, they'll know the pain that I'm talking about. Yeah, you painted like the side of a white car or something, and you've leant over it to start lacquering a roof, and you know your paint suit's got all, oh yeah, just yeah, dirt and stuff on it, but it's not dirty. It's just dust and overspray. It's stuck to your white job, and you just, yeah, you want to cry. So you just gotta keep all that in mind. Like when it comes to me painting the shell, I did originally. I spoke to the boss about this. He was saying, me and him were saying, he's like, oh, you should just paint the roof and your door apertures. And I did think about this when I was sanding it. I was thinking, you know what, I should just paint the roof in one hit, and then come in the next day, and then I can do all the sides and stuff, which would make it easier, but it also makes it longer. But I don't run, if I was to do it that way, I don't run the risk of having anything stick in the sides, or it's easy for my boots to flick a bit of crap off the ladders and flick in the side of the van when I've just put a coat of lacquer on. And there's just a lot that can go wrong when you paint a full shell on your own. Like me and the boss paint shells like this all the time together. So we take a side each. We start on the roof, so we can keep that wet edge. We start on the roof, and then we go down the side. He'll take a side, I'll take a side. We'll meet in the middle, and it just means you can keep a wet edge, and it is a lot better that way. You can. It just means your paint's going on. If you're keeping a wet edge, your paint's going on nice. You're not getting as much dry spray. It's just generally better to do it like that. But I'm gonna paint this on my own because it's my van. I want to paint it on my own. I've never painted a motor for myself like this, so again, this is going to be something that I can stand back afterwards and say, yeah, you know what, I've painted that on my own, and here is the end result when it comes down to it when I get it finished. So yeah, no, it will be nice and it will be good. So Um, it'd be nice to paint it with the boss. Don't get me wrong, because it is nice to know that you can keep that wet edge going. You know, if someone's on the other side of the roof and you're painting your side, they're painting the other side. You know, your base coat's staying wet and stuff. So, or even when it comes to lacquer as well, you know, I'm gonna be moving, like I'm gonna be pushing so fast to get that clear coat on. Even with a slow hardener, you know, I'm gonna be pushing, but nothing we're not used to. You know, we paint a lot of big stuff like that all the time, and you've gotta push and keep moving with it. Like painting the side of big 40-foot wagons and stuff. You know, you're painting big sides of like freezer wagons, like big 40-foot sides. You know, they're like when me and the boss do them, he'll start at the top, I'll start at the bottom, and then we cross over. Or we keep it going. You know, like so when he's got the ladders in my way, I'll jump to the other side or whatever. So just all about keeping that edge wet, because then you know that's just how your jobs turn out bad with dry spray, and then dry spray creates dust and dirt and stuff. So yeah, for people that don't know, that's why sometimes it is. You probably see lads painting you see two lads painting a job or a van or not a car necessarily, but a big job like a van. That's why it's just easier to paint it with two people. You get it done faster too. You know, you get the job done a lot faster because you think you're effectively only painting half a van or half of whatever it is you're painting if you paint it with two people. So yeah, coming to the end of this one now, getting this last coat on, just finishing this quarter up. Again, I didn't want to mix more primer up. I was trying to make what I had doing the gun. The gun was starting to feel very light, so I was just getting it on the quarters where I needed it to. I was trying to get a good coat on as well. Because it was my last coat, and I knew I was going to be blocking it all down. I was making sure to get plenty of build on. So yeah, that's where I want it. I'm not too bothered about there where I'm spraying now because that's in behind the mouldings, so I don't need massive build on there. I've got two good coats on there already. Yeah, in that bottom section, I want plenty on there. That's going to get a lot of stone chips and stuff up it, so that's going to have a lot of traffic near that. Again, don't really care about the tyres and the wheels on that because I'm putting brand new wheels on, so people wondering why I'm spraying the tyres there, I really don't care because them wheels are just going to end up going. I'll probably take the tyres off them, but the Steelies might go in the scrap or something. Or if anyone wants a spare set of Steely Sprinter wheels, they can come and make me an offer or whatever. But yeah, if people are wondering, they're not staying on the van, so yeah, I'm not being rough. I'm not being rough. I just don't care, and I'm not spending time masking them when I don't need to. So yeah, for people wondering what's going on there, that's why. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap this one up now. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching, and keep following the series of me getting this van built and of the project. So yeah, keep following and give the channel a like and subscribe if you're interested in this sort of content. And yeah, thank you very much.